Hey everyone, welcome to another explainer. We're doing something a little different today. If you are an ambitious beginner, someone who is just entirely exhausted by that endless paycheck to paycheck cycle, this one is for you. We're breaking down some, brutal Machiavellian strategies to basically shatter that cycle. The goal? Taking absolute, uncompromising control of your expenses and building real, lasting wealth that sets you free.
So let's kick things off with a pretty tough question. Why does earning more money rarely actually fix your financial stress? There's this pervasive myth that a bigger income just automatically equals freedom. We've all been there thinking, man, if I just got that raise, if I just got that promotion, everything would be fine. But actually, scratch that. The truth is, the system around us, the targeted ads, the crazy easy financing, that constant you deserve it messaging, it's literally designed to make you spend faster than you can ever earn. Until you realize that, you're playing a rigged game.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our structured roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to walk through a complete paradigm shift from reactive spending to intentional wealth building. We'll start with the income illusion, move to the core philosophy of paying yourself first, dive into expense control, look at wealth math and debt, and finally, wrap it up with automation and protection.
All right, part one, the income illusion. Because listen, this is not an income problem. If you feel trapped financially, I really need you to hear this loud and clear. It is rarely a problem of how much you make. It is almost always a strategic and behavioral problem.
There's this fantastic quote by Machiavelli that sums up the exact mindset shift we need. He warned, people aren't destroyed because they lack opportunity, they're destroyed because they misunderstand power. Think about how that applies to your money. Relying purely on a salary bump changes absolutely nothing if your underlying habits stay exactly the same, right? If you don't understand how to wield the power of the money you already have, making more is just going to mean bigger, way more expensive problems.
See, most people are out there frantically chasing income. They're just reacting to life as it hits them, letting outside forces dictate their financial health. But true power, that comes from control. Control is what actually builds wealth and creates lasting leverage. Real transformation starts when those illusions break. You've got to stop blaming your income and start taking rigorous control of your behavior. That is the absolute foundation for this whole shebang.
Which brings us perfectly to section 2, pay yourself first. This requires a complete shift in mindset. Now, I know you've probably heard this phrase a million times before, but we aren't talking about some casual budgeting tip here. We are talking about a fundamental declaration of self-respect.
Paying yourself first means treating your future self as your absolute most important creditor. You pay you before the landlord, before the credit card company, and way before your streaming services get their cut. Take a young John D. Rockefeller, for example. Before he was a billionaire oil magnate, he was literally just a bookkeeper living on a super modest income. But from his very first paycheck, he followed this exact rule with absolute, unwavering discipline. The amount he saved wasn't life-changing at first, but the habit absolutely was. It trained his brain that building wealth was non-negotiable.
Okay, moving on to section 3, expense control. Let's talk mechanics. We have to stop the silent leaks. Because once you start paying yourself first, things might feel a little tight, right? Why? Because money leaks quietly. It rarely vanishes all at once in one giant purchase. Instead, it escapes invisibly in tiny increments. And until you expose these leaks, all the discipline in the world will never be enough.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how easily it happens. Picture this. It's a tired Thursday night. You don't want to cook. So you open an app and order some food. It's $300 for the food, $80 for the service fee, $60 for delivery, $40 for the tip, and suddenly almost $500 is just gone for a simple convenience meal. It feels automatic, almost like breathing. You don't even register it as a major financial decision because modern technology has completely removed the friction of spending.
But here's the crazy part. All of those innocent little moments, they can easily add up to $10,000 over time. No joke. That is the staggering potential cost of those invisible automatic leaks. You thought you maybe spent a couple thousand, but that gap between what you think you spend and what you actually spend is exactly where your wealth is quietly disappearing. You have to track every single dollar like it owes you rent. The Rothschild banking empire didn't become a powerhouse by guessing, right? Awareness creates leverage.
Which leads us nicely right into section 4, wealth math and debt. Once you've tracked your spending and plugged those silent leaks, you can't just let your money sit there idly. You need a highly intentional, structured system for the money you actually keep.
This brings us to what we call rich math. It's an allocation, 60% to needs, 30% to wealth building, and 10% to wants.
Poor math, on the other hand, is purely emotional. It just looks at an item and asks, can I afford the monthly payment today? But rich math asks a much better question. What will this actually cost me over time? This specific 60-30-10 split is exactly how an ambitious beginner on a modest income can completely outperform someone pulling in a massive salary. One is strategic. The other is just reacting to impulses. But to make rich math work, you have to ruthlessly avoid normalized middle-class debt traps. We're talking buy now, pay later schemes, crazy $70,000 a month car EMIs for vehicles you barely use, 0% financing on giant TVs, and endless digital subscriptions you forgot you even had. Make no mistake, debt costs freedom. It actively conditions you to live comfortably beyond your means while keeping you totally dependent on a job you can't walk away from. If it doesn't pay you back, it's a liability.
And that brings us to our final phase in Section 5, automation and protection. It's time to protect your money from yourself. So you've paid yourself first, stopped the silent leaks, killed your bad debt, and you're finally building a healthy margin. Now, you gotta lock it down.
So the crucial point here is that human discipline is incredibly fragile, and motivation always fades. But systems execute automatically, without hesitation. So open a second account at a totally different bank. Refuse the debit card so you can't easily access the cash. And most importantly, automate the transfer every single payday. You must outsmart your own temptation by making that money entirely untouchable. Out of sight becomes out of mind, and out of mind becomes real, aggressively protected savings.
And once it's protected, you must invest, even if it's just $500 at a time. For everyone watching who is just starting out on this journey, I really want to reassure you. Investing that first $500 isn't really about the financial returns. It is about a massive identity shift. It's moving from a mindset of consumption and spending to a powerful mindset of ownership. Warren Buffett bought his first stock as a kid. It wasn't about massive immediate profits. It was about understanding early on that ownership compounds quietly over time while spending just disappears instantly.
And this brilliantly illustrates our ultimate goal, choosing stealth wealth over loud wealth. Loud wealth is all about signals, the flashy cars, the designer clothes, which really just invite unwanted attention, immense social pressure, and ultimately terrible financial decisions. But true power lies in stealth wealth. It's invisible. It's a remarkably simple lifestyle backed by quiet, heavily compounded investments. You aren't performing for others. You are owning your time. You are completely free because your life isn't financed by stressful debt just to impress people you don't even know.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to really chew on. What is the one word that defines your new financial identity starting today? Don't think about trying to save or starting a budget. Think about becoming. Step boldly into an identity of control, of consistency, and of unstoppable systems. I hope you're leaving this explainer hungry to apply these brutal but highly effective strategies to your own life. Get out there, take control, and start building your wealth quietly. Thanks for learning with me today.